Hey, okay, there we go. It looks like I'm getting it looks like uh it looks like I'm on. Great. Okay, so the audio, I'm definitely getting some feedback here in the bottom bar. My apologies here. Still new to this live stream setup here. Hey, can you hear me? Let me know if you can hear me. It appears that I'm using the built-in mic right now. So I'll just give people a few minutes to jump back on and to totally understand if it's not a good time now. And yeah, really disappointing. I'll have to work on that. Hey, okay, great. Thank you so much. Okay, great, DH Chem. Yeah, I'm routing it through my laptop mic, which I don't even know why I'm wearing my headphones. Nobody's talking back to me. So great. Okay, great. Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. You mentioned asking Thai students about their haircut. You know, it's challenging because I think the English is limited to. I don't really want to. I have some concern about filming people under the age of 18. I just think that it's there's some potential repercussions there, and obviously too respect to their parents. So I'm not sure if I'd be doing that, but um, yeah. You might try the more human side of being a vlogger. A British vlogger vlogs about how he's struggling with his partner and raising their son. He reads other stories, but also his own. Um, yeah, telling stories would be good. And I think that, if uh, I'm being honest, I do have a lot of interesting stories from my time here. Um, that's something I should talk about more just because I've had a lot of interesting experiences and seen a lot of stuff over here that's really different from what I'm used to in the United States. And where I'm at too is like the polar opposite of where I am in the States, just 12-hour time zone difference. So on the other side of the planet entirely. And it feels that way. It certainly feels that way in mostly pleasant ways. I love being in this part of the world, and I think the people are part of what make it interesting. I will say I think that the people are different here in Hat Yai. You see an interesting mix. There's a lot more people who are of Chinese descent here in Hat Yai, similar to Bangkok. I in Chiang Mai, I found it was much more like Lana people, also people from Myanmar, people from Laos, um, more people from Myanmar. I think Myanmar's got a larger population, but um, Laos is definitely on my list. I've heard that it's very popular to go to Laos uh, for visa run from Vietnam. So people who are staying in Vietnam who need to exit the country and come back in, they have like a bus service from Hanoi and probably also from Saigon or Ho Chi Minh City that will take you to Laos and then you come back. And so that might be cool. Like head over there for a day, check it out. I have a buddy, I can't remember his name. I think he's in Arizona these days, but I met him when I was in Chiang Mai 6 years ago, and he went up to Laos. And he said that he enjoyed it. The people were super friendly. There just is at the time there was just not much development, so there wasn't much to spend money on, and there wasn't much to do. But I think for a day it could be cool. I know it's got more of a country atmosphere, probably similar to where I'm from in the United States, especially outside of the city, where you have a lot of people that are, they're kind of country people. They're a little bit slower paced lifestyle. Uh, they do a lot of. I've heard there's a lot of cool rivers, which is similar to where I'm from in the States. You have a lot of people that enjoy spending time on the river. It's a popular weekend pastime. People go out on the river, and it's really different because while I grew up in the South, I grew up in a city where it's this entertainment capital, and it's almost like growing up in Las Vegas versus growing up in the Nevada desert. Even though they're in the same state, they might only be a couple hours apart. It's a very different atmosphere. DH Kim says it doesn't have to be your story. Maybe some stuff you think people find interesting. Maybe dig up stuff that people don't know about, but would be interested in, like how Thais can overcome poverty. Well, I think people in any country can overcome poverty by basically through leverage. You really need leverage if you want to make a lot of money, and that's really the amplification of your efforts. A lot of people think of leverage as debt, but debt's not the only form of leverage. Leverage can be like owning a building, owning a condo. Technology is another form of leverage. Like I leverage the YouTube platform to reach a lot of you who can view my stream at one time, and also a lot of views afterwards. I was surprised the last stream I did, I think last weekend, it's up to like 200 views. I was shocked that so many people would want to watch the replay, but it's and also with technology, the advantage of technology as far as building wealth or creating wealth is that you have no marginal cost of reproduction. So I can make one video and 1,000 people can enjoy it. It costs no more for 10,000 people to enjoy it. So that's where making really good quality content is helpful. And so, yeah, you need scale also. I say it, I think about it a lot in my day-to-day life. You don't get paid based on how hard you work. You get paid based on how many people you serve. And so that's why the wages or the income in tech or engineering are so high, is that you're working on projects that serve lots and lots of people. So these principles, I would say, work in any country. You just have to kind of apply them and put a lot of time into it, a lot of effort into it. It's not an overnight process, but it's something that can pay off in time. And I do have for Thais, a lot of Thai people move to Bangkok to find opportunity. Several of my friends in Bangkok came from Chiang Mai or the north. And you can hear similar stories in Pattaya. I would talk to the massage ladies in Pattaya, and universally, they would all be from the north. And they're like, well, it's just hard to find work in the north. I even had a dermatologist I saw in Pattaya, and she was really good. And I was talking to her, like, where are you from? And she was like, oh, I'm from Chiang Mai, but I moved to Pattaya to open my clinic because you just have more opportunity in Pattaya to do business. So that's something to think about as well, as just like, a lot of Thai people are already thinking about that. And so they'll move to Bangkok or Pattaya because these are some places where you have lots of opportunities with foreign tourists and people bringing in money from around the world, people looking for different kinds of services. And in Bangkok, Bangkok has a solid tech industry. One of my friends works in the tech industry in Bangkok. I'm going to be really not going to share too many details about her, but there's opportunities in tech in Bangkok, and that's really one of those ways that people can make a lot of money relative to what they could make, say, back in their hometown or in a different industry. DH Kim says, yes, Laos and Cambodia get far less attention than Thailand and the Philippines, but that's probably for good reason. I enjoyed Cambodia a lot. I would love to go back. Honestly, like if we're talking about just for dating, like I found Cambodia to be one of the best countries or places I've ever been for dating. Like I used Tinder in Cambodia. I also met women on the street. Like one of my friends in Cambodia, she owns a hotel and a cafe, and she struck up a conversation with me. I met her because her cafe is right next to the Phnom Penh airport, and I really enjoyed it. She served me some Cambodian food, and she's really a sweet person and just such a warm person, such a kind person. And like, I loved Cambodia, and I also had some friends there, some expat friends that introduced me to it several years ago, because I was planning a long trip to Asia 5 years ago, and I talked to my buddy who works in Phnom Penh. He's like, "Yeah, come to Phnom Penh. I know you've been to Bangkok, but you should check it out." I'm like, "Okay, you know, I'll give it a shot." And he took me to a Malaysian restaurant, which was amazing. Man, that food was good, and we just had a blast. We went out partying, and like, yeah, Phnom Penh is to me an underrated city. I know that there's some tragic history there, but I loved the city. I thought it was super cool. It just like, I remember getting out of the airport and getting, I get a tuk-tuk. I can't remember how I got to my hotel in the Riverside from the airport, but I remember just going down the street and seeing dogs running and people on bicycles and people on tuk-tuks, people on motorbikes, people in extremely high-end cars. Like I remember seeing like a Rolls Royce in Phnom Penh. I've never seen a Rolls Royce in my hometown back in the States. So you just see this. It's really an eclectic city. It reminded me a lot of New Orleans. That's like the best American. If for those who are watching this in the rerun, have you ever been to the city of New Orleans? Phnom Penh reminded me so much of New Orleans. It has that river town feeling, that French influence. It's, it's vibrant. It's charming. It's such a cool city. And for me, it's just such a cool city. It's different. It's definitely different from Bangkok. It's got a more modest population, but it's growing rapidly. I mean, when I was there 4 years ago, saw tons of construction. I think you still see that today. And the future of Cambodia, I think, is bright. It's I like all the countries in the region, right? So all the countries I've been to in the region, I look at them as different flavors of the same kind of general vibe, and I found different things that I like about all of them. Are they all the same? No, they're not all the same. But there's so many different interesting people that you meet and people you can talk to and food to have and architecture. I love the architecture in this region. Just, it's so cool. It just looks so cool. It looks so different. I think part of it's the concrete. Concrete's extremely expensive in America, and so you just don't see as much being built out of concrete. But here they produce so much concrete that it just has that, I don't know, it's another otherworldly experience. Jinsa asks, have you been to Penang, Malaysia? I've been to KL, and I like KL a lot. KL to me I would call KL the most underrated city in the region because it's not a party scene. Like, you do have a party district there. They do have bars there. But because I'm not as much of a party guy, I loved KL. And for me too, KL is one of those places that's not as much of a place to visit. Like I did enjoy my visit. It's a place to live. It's a place to go and be there for a long time because it's very convenient. The public transit is awesome. I was like shocked at the public transit. This is so convenient. I like the development. I like the malls everywhere. I liked that. I like the food a lot. I mean, for me, being a Western person, that you get a lot of variety there that in a monoculture or a homogenous country, you're not going to get that extraordinary variety as much. You still have it, but in KL, it was like, wow, you got amazing Indian food here. You got amazing Muslim food here. You got the local Malaysian dishes. You also have, especially in KLCC, you have these massive shopping malls that are serving food from all over the world. So it really reminded me a lot of the United States in ways that I liked a lot. Of course, the United States is a former British colony. Malaysia's a former British colony. But I loved Malaysia. I'd be happy to go back there at some point in the future. I'm not sure when that will be, but it's very developed. I enjoyed also the Chinatown in Malaysia. I liked PJ Pedaling Jaya a lot. I like the names too. Just like Bukit means hill, so it's a very hilly city. It reminds me of my hometown because my hometown's a very hilly city, and I think some of the people that I've connected the best with have been in this region have been Malaysian people because they speak really good English. And for my Malaysian friends, they both lived in the States. So they actually went to college in the States and they worked different jobs in the States. And then they went back to Southeast Asia after they graduated. And so we can really connect a lot because we have a lot of shared experiences that I think I may not have as much with some other places. Now, of course, my Thai friends have also either lived in the States or their parents lived in the States for a while. And so there's a lot to connect with on there. But as far as just shared experience goes, I really liked Malaysia, Malaysian people. And there's a lot for me to go back to. I want to see Penang in the future. I also want to see Georgetown, which I guess is part of Penang. And there was one other place, like Malacca. That's where one of my friends is from. He was like, "You got to go see Malacca." And so Malaysia is definitely up there for me. DH Kim says, "Have you thought about spending time in Eastern Europe? Some nomads also tried that area in Spain, which can be surprisingly cheap for a Western European country." Yeah, so I was in Spain about a year ago, and I loved it. I loved Spain. I spent a couple of weeks there. Also visited Portugal on that trip, and Spain is really, really appealing to me. It just you have warm and friendly people, but it's also very developed. The public transit was very good. I took the train in the country. I also took some buses in the country. People were very friendly and coming up to me and talking to me. And there was that shared experience conversation as well. A number of the people I met in Spain had lived in America or had visited America or wanted to move to America. A lot of young people in Spain are struggling with opportunity there just because the youth unemployment rate. It's like one of the most commonly talked about things when it comes to Spain, but I'll talk about it just because I think it's relevant to this conversation. But a lot of them were like, "Man, I really want to try moving to New York or LA because we hear about the opportunity there that's not as common here, especially in the Andalusia region." So I loved Spain, loved the food in Spain, loved the cleanliness. It was very, like in Sevilla, it was very, very clean, like almost like a museum in terms of cleanliness, and really safe as well. I didn't feel danger. Now, I will say when I was in Spain, I pointed out a public park to some kids I met. I say kids, they're college age students, and I was just talking to them about this park because I was like, back in the States, I love going to public parks. It's just a lovely place to be. They're beautiful. You get some time in nature. And they were like, "No, you don't want to go to that park. That park's not safe." So there's probably that element out there, but I didn't experience it. I felt fine the whole time. I'd be happy to go back to Spain. As far as Eastern Europe goes, it's of interest to me as well. I think that it's definitely intriguing because growing up in the States, I knew some people from Eastern Europe. They warned me not to go. My friends in the States growing up, they said, "Be careful. Like, let me put you in touch with my grandparents." But I don't know, like, just what's the word? Like, I'm not as much of a fan of the extreme cold weather. So that's something that in Eastern Europe, it would be somewhat of a barrier for me, is that I just don't like the extreme cold as much. So just from a weather perspective, it would that part would not be as appealing to me as say Spain or Portugal, which are very, very mild weather-wise. I was in Spain and Portugal in January and didn't feel cold. It's a little bit chilly and breezy, but I didn't get that sense of like there's going to be a snowstorm here or something like that. But yeah, definitely plan to go back to Iberia. And on my way back to the States, I'm trying to plan a kind of tentative route back to America because I have a lot of things I need to handle back there. I'm looking at the different paths, and one path would be through South Korea, which is very appealing. I've not been to South Korea, but another path I could take would be to fly to say like Turkey or to Western Europe, Portugal, Spain, perhaps Greece, Thomas. And so that's kind of what's on my mind lately is like, okay, if I need to go back to America, then how am I going to get back there? And what could be a cool layover for like a week or two, just to kind of break up the culture shock of going back to America. And I already know I'm going to run into a lot of culture shock. I remember when I came back from Latin America, and this is my time to complain a little bit about America, but in 2021, I was in Latin America from January until late June, and so I was gone for close to 6 months. Maybe it was early February. I think it might have been the first week of February. So when I come back to America in late June, I'm going through customs, and the customs officer asked me, "Did you bring anything back?" And I'm like, "Ah, no." He's like, "You spent 6 months there and you didn't bring anything back?" And I'm like, "Oh wow, welcome to America. Love the horrible customer service here. Love the horrible attitudes of people here." But you know, that was that first culture shock, because I'm used to people in Latin America being very friendly and warm, and this guy is just over the top nasty. And that kind of experience is just like, yeah, it's one of those things that I don't like about America, and I'm not looking forward to. I could get a better one this time. I think when I did my 4 month trip in Asia 4 years ago, when I came back to LA, and this was during COVID, late March 2020, coming from Bangkok, the customs people were fine. They were indifferent. They were like, I'm bored. I'm super bored, but they weren't over the top nasty like this customs person in Atlanta was. So definitely something to think about, but I could get a little bit of a interruption by going to like East Asia or to Western or Southern Europe, which are more similar to the United States than Thailand, which is decidedly very different from the United States in positive ways. Thomas asks, can you come to Australia visa free? Yes. So I think for Americans, we get 90 days. I think similar to Malaysia, we get 90 days in Australia. I would like to go to Australia at some point in the future. I'm a big fan of like some MMA fighters that are from Australia, like Alexander Volkanovski, also Robert Whittaker. Well, I think Robert Whittaker was born in New Zealand but grew up in Australia. There's also, I think, Jack Della. He's from Australia. Yeah, Australia seems very cool. And I grew up listening to some hardcore bands from Australia too, like Parkway Drive. They're from Byron Bay. So Australia has always seemed like a really mysterious place. I also want to do like I don't want to get in the water with them, but I want to do a shark tour. I want to go and look at great white sharks. I don't know if I have the guts to get in the cage and be in the water to look at them. I think sounds terrifying, but I really want to go see them just to see what they look like. And yeah, just see some really big sharks. I also want to check out a crocodile farm while I'm here in Thailand. I haven't gotten around to that. I think there is one near Pattaya, but that's definitely appealing. Let me look that up. I'm curious if there's one in Hat Yai. Hat Yai Croc Farm. Yeah, no crocodile farm. Croc farm. Okay, so there's one in Samut Prakan. So I may look into that because I'm thinking about spending most of the rest of my time here in Thailand and Bangkok, because Bangkok is just such a cool city. It's one of my favorite cities in the world. It's such a eclectic. It's got this mysterious vibe. Like every time I go to Bangkok, I have no idea what's going to happen. And the more I go there, the less I know what's going to happen. Like the more stuff I see, it's just wow. It's just a thrilling city. I love Bangkok. Jinsa says, liked your video about your FI number. Can you share more about how you're thinking about what's enough? Well, this is the way I conceptualize it, Jinsa, is I want enough money to pay my rent, food and transportation, and my visa fees, and then have some to save every month, right? And then from there, my goal after I hit my FI number is to pick a country in Southeast Asia. You could do the slow travel wheel, which I'm a fan of. Vagabond Awake, I'll throw his channel name down there. He's got a really awesome channel Um, and he's been at this for a really long time, and you can tell he's been like he's probably been to 70 or 80 countries and spent a long time in each of them, which to me is I don't want to say the most impressive, but he's got a certain perspective that is not easily replicatable or replicable. And you know, I think at that 2,000 per month, if I have to go with the Philippines, like I like the Philippines a lot. That's the easiest one for Americans. Americans can get like up to 3 years on a tourist visa. For their retirement visa, you only have to be 35 to qualify, which is going to be me in 4 years. So that 2,000 a month, I feel confident I could live in the Philippines, not in Bonifacio Global City, maybe not in parts of Manila, but certainly other parts of the country, I could live fine on that amount. And then what I would do, because there's a lot of reciprocity there, is I would get with a lawyer and I would get permission to work in the Philippines. I'd also try to work toward Philippine citizenship. And in that process, I would establish my business because I want to do business, but I only want to do it above board. I only want to do it with following the right rules and laws and stuff. So that's the goal: is get to the point where my income from my investments pays for my cost of living, and then build upon that. Live a lifestyle I want to live because I enjoy living over here much more than I do living back in the US, but also be able to move forward with an online business of some kind that is not tied to a location, because I can make lots of money in America, but I don't really like to live in America. And so the opposite side is I can live cheap, and I say I can live economically in Southeast Asia, but I cannot make the same income, say, teaching English. It's just not Teaching English is just not scalable as easily as certain other business ideas that I have, because it's a one-to-one thing. So I'm getting paid X amount per minute, whereas in certain other businesses you have outsized potential upside, like with streaming or YouTube, for example. There's no real limit on how many people I can serve with a business like this. And so that's what makes this more appealing. However, I don't have a work permit in Thailand. And so, I'm not looking to do something like that where I'm running afoul of, uh, you know, yeah, I want to do everything by the book. I don't have any interest to break the rules. My ideal would be to spend the rest of my life in Asia. So the Philippines is very appealing for that reason. I hope that's helpful. So what's enough for me? Paying my bills and owning my time, and then using my time to do work on what I want to work on as opposed to what I have to work on. DH Kim says, I went to Kota Kinabalu in Malaysia 2008. It was really disappointing. I'm sorry to hear that. That's really unfortunate, DH Kim. Yeah, I never got to the sort of beach parts of Malaysia. KL was super impressive, but I didn't get out of KL. I liked KL a lot, but I do think it's important to see more than just the big city to get the full picture. If you can, why not try to find a tech job in Singapore? Many highly skilled expats work there. I think I'd have to go back to graduate school, and that's kind of where I'm at now. Is I don't know if I want to spend the money or borrow the money to go to graduate school. Singapore is awesome. I loved it. I visited Singapore 4 years ago. I was there for about a week. I loved the architecture. I loved how safe it was. I loved how clean it was. I loved the access to Southeast Asia. You have access to all these cool places. I admire what they've been able to do with that country to go from a very poor and down and out kind of place to among the most developed countries in the world, arguably the most developed country in the world. I would say it's up there with Scandinavian countries and Japan and Korea in terms of just that hyper developed feel. So that's certainly appealing. And I'll give the downside now, because I mentioned the upside about Singapore. The downside is that I've started to get some Silicon Valley names on my resume, and as an American, it's easier for me to go to a place like Bay Area, California, than it would be to go to Singapore. Singapore, you do have the advantage of really low income tax. I think it's like a 10% flat rate, But then I'm also on the other side of the world, and in Bay Area, California, it's just more along what I'm used to. I'm really accustomed to living there. I love the weather in San Francisco. I love the culture in San Francisco. I love the opportunities. You got plenty of opportunities to move up. It's basically like the wealthiest area on the planet. If you look at the per capita number of millionaires, you look at the mega businesses, the businesses there that have a mega outsized impact. You look at the education level. I think 75% of the people in the Bay Area have an education. It's my favorite part of the United States. It's San Francisco is one of the very few places in America that I like almost as much as I do living in other parts of the world, because it's so developed. It's also easy to get to Asia. If you want to fly to Asia from San Francisco, you're not having to fly across the country or across Europe and West Asia to get to, say, East or South or Southeast Asia. So that's kind of the downer on Singapore, is it would take a lot more legwork to be working there versus a San Francisco. So that's kind of the trade-off there. Hong Kong, let's see. Jinsa says, thinking of Bangkok this summer, neighborhoods not touristy you recommend? Not touristy. I would say not so much like touristy versus not touristy, but you might think about some centrally located neighborhoods that are not on Sukhumvit. I would say Sukhumvit is the most touristic strip, or most catering to Western people strip in the city. You have like Nana, which attracts a lot of Western tourists. That you also have on that line, you have Siloam, you have Onnut, you have Ekamai. Why don't we pull that up, actually? Let's see here. I'm going to pull up a map of Bangkok, and I can actually just show you that way. Bangkok. Share Bangkok. So here we've got Bangkok, and I'll show you Sukhumvit just to kind of have a starting point of reference. This is what I would say is the most touristic part of the city. This is Sukhumvit, and so this is where you'll see a lot of Western tourists. So if I were somebody who's trying to avoid this stretch from like just through here, then I'd take a look. I'm a fan of. I stayed here, so I stayed up here, Victory Monument, when I got to Bangkok last summer. It's it's not the fanciest neighborhood, but it's very convenient. You're still you still have, like, right here, you've got the BTS, and you've got an MRT station. Where is the MRT station? You've got the MRT station. Oh, Ratchaparap. So right here. So you got an MRT station right there. This is actually where I stayed, 21 Living Place. Recommend it if you're not sure where to stay. But staying somewhere here where you have access to these public transit lines, but it feels like pretty Thai. If I, use a generic terminology there, I saw mostly Thai people here. You have a lot of Thai people living here for work. You have a lot of Thai people commuting through here as well. This, like, Victory Monument itself, you've got a ton of bus stations all around this, or bus stops all around this spot. I always pass through here to get up to immigration. But yeah, I would say Victory Monument is one area where I would say it's not very touristic. You still have great restaurants. You have a couple of malls here that are really convenient, that have some great restaurants, once again, filled with Thai people. There's also, now Ratchathuri is not as non-touristic, but you still have a lot of good Thai restaurants through here. And then once you get down here is where it does get more touristic. You're talking about the Siam area around here. You have some high-end shopping. Central World. Siam Paragon is probably the fanciest one, but I also spent time at MBK. MBK has got like an electronics mall. But yeah, that's where I would say most people that are visitors do want to stay east of the river. I don't know, I haven't been very far west of the river. That's something I want to do in my next time in Bangkok. In about a month, I'd say about a month I'll be in Bangkok, and so that's where you go if you want to be even less touristic. But you're not going to run into as much English over here. You're not going to run into I would say, I don't want to call it inconvenient, but you're going to have to do a little bit more legwork over on this side of the river, I think. And for what it's worth, my Thai friends mostly are spending time east of the river because they work east of the river. And so for them, like after work, they're looking for stuff to do that's close by, and they'll spend time over here. And I would say even with Sukhumvit, you don't necessarily have to do touristic stuff. Like there's some great restaurants near Sukhumvit. I went to this restaurant, Buenazo. It's a ceviche restaurant. This was over here. Mostly Thai people eating at this place. And so there's definitely still like cool stuff to do over here. Go-karting. I didn't know there was go-karting here. I got to check that out sometime. That looks awesome. Jinsa, I live in Onnut currently and don't hate it. It's a couple of BTS stops away from everything downtown while being Yeah, Onnut is awesome. Jay, great to see you on here. Welcome to the stream. Onnut is like a hidden gem. One of my Thai friends, she lives in Onnut and she grew up in Onnut. And it's definitely, I think it's really popular because you have a mix of proximity of close to the city, but also plenty of development, and a lot of Thai people live there too. And that's where I find my best experiences have been, where you do have a lot of Thai people, but you're not too far away from the tourist stuff. It's level of comfort. Like there's parts of Thailand I've been to where it's only Thai people, but there's a few people with a strong command of English. So you do feel a bit more isolation, where being in Onnut, not so much. Let's see. Jake says, Alex, I've only been living in Bangkok for 2 weeks now. I'm starting language classes next week, but have been sort of clueless how to establish a healthy social circle that doesn't revolve around drinking. One of the first things I'd say, Jake, and I haven't done this myself, but it's something that I've done in San Francisco to great success. I check out meetup.com. And if you've got a certain interest, I know that there's crypto meetups in Bangkok. There is a crypto meetup in Bangkok. There's also an AI meetup in Bangkok that I've been wanting to check out. What else? Trying to think of what else. How I made my Thai friends is not easily kind of replicatable. How I met my Thai friends is that I had a Western friend introduce me to a Thai friend. And then how I did it was I asked them, hey, can you introduce me to your Thai friends? And it kind of spiraled out from there. So I would say my thoughts here are the first person that you meet, it's going to be hardest to make that initial connection. Use that connection to bridge off into other people. Mention like, hey, I'm new to town. I'm really wanting to get out and meet people. And, do you have any friends that are open to showing a foreigner around, introducing activities or different things? I'm unsure of what to do, but I'm open-minded. I would check out, so I'd check out Meetup. And what else? What else would I suggest for meeting people? Yeah, because it's kind of tough, when you're in Bangkok, like you're not sure if the people can speak English, and um, let's see, meetup. So yeah, meetup would be one suggestion. Um, I don't, and also Jake, I'm happy to hang out when I get up there. It should be about a month, and I know that that doesn't help your immediate need because I know you have your language classes coming up. Um, I'm happy to introduce you to a Thai friend when I get up there if she's not shy. Sometimes my Thai friends are a little bit shy about their English, and they worry that they're not they're worried they're not communicating effectively, which breaks my heart a little bit because they make such a strong effort, and they're really, like I said, wonderful and warm people. Another one, Jake, I didn't think about this, and you may or may not be comfortable with this, but I would suggest dating apps, and not so much to go out and date. I'm not sure where you're at with that. I'm not sure about your preferences, or how open you are to that. Some people prefer to meet women organically. I like dating apps just because there's some screening involved. Like, okay, you know what I look like, you know what my interests are, we can hold a basic conversation. And there's some characters characters on there, but there's some interesting people on there as well that it can help kind of, at the least, I think they can clue you into certain things that you might not be familiar with. So you don't necessarily have to approach it with a sense like I'm going out on a date with this person, but rather just like, hey, can you show me around town? Or hey, can you introduce me to some cool places that you like to go? Or maybe there's a certain, I don't know. Like, I think that's another good way to approach it, is like use the dating apps, but use some like social apps, because there's people I've met on dating apps here in Thailand that I'm not interested in them at all in a romantic context, but they they have a lot to teach me just about the culture, about what their interests are. Um, one woman I met is like an art teacher. I think she lives in Siloam, or she lives in I think she lives in Oslo. But you can meet interesting people, and also have like yeah, it does get draining. I will readily agree with you, Jake. Like, the apps can be soul sucking at times anywhere I've been in the world, because it's, well, one, I think it's a little bit tougher as a guy, um, because when I started using dating apps, there was like not very many guys on there at all. It seemed like mostly women, and then over time, like, it shifted a lot. It was incredible back in the States in, like, say 2015. Those are crazy times. I can't believe it's been almost 10 years, but yeah, that's something I would say, just a little bit different approach. And like, even if you see somebody that you're not necessarily attracted to, but they have an interesting bio, then it's, you can kind of take it from there. And yeah, just having kind of that socialization, more so than dating. Because on the other hand, there's women I've been attracted to on the dating apps that I had a great time with, but we really couldn't connect beyond just kind of a fling. So it was like, yeah, it was fun to hang out with them for a night, but that's not really something that's going to lead to lasting connection in some cases, right? And there's other people, like I said, there's other people I'm not attracted to, but we could be friends. And so yeah, some of my Thai female friends, it's strictly platonic, nothing wrong with them, but it's great, because um, there's not going to be this blow up like I did had a LDR, I call it LDR, with a Thai woman for about 4 months. I met through one of my Thai friends, and that did not end well, because I just couldn't make it to Thailand, and our unique toxicities combined in such a way that it definitely turned toxic. And so that's what I would say about that. DH Kim, another vlogger in Thailand from Oakland, California, a Taiwanese American who served in the army, said he can't go back because that city has gotten so bad. Yeah, I worked in Oakland and lived in Oakland, and it's unfortunate. It's going through a rough time. It's kind of a boom and a bust town where in the good times, it's one of the greatest cities in the world, and during the bad times, it's definitely got some problems. Um, I think it's awful for the people that are from there who don't have an option to leave. Like for me, I love California, but I'm from Tennessee, so uh, I do have that advantage of like, hey, I could just go back to my home state if things aren't working out. Whereas I know a lot of people don't have that option. Um, yeah, that sounds great. I'm glad to hear that, Jake. Yeah, it can be hard. Like it's hard because we see so many vlogs on Thailand where it paints Thailand as the greatest, most amazing place on the earth, and Bangkok is the capital of all that awesomeness with the beautiful architecture, the modern transportation, some of the best food that you'll ever have in your life. But then when it actually gets to boots on the ground, where you're like trying to integrate into that tapestry, you do feel some sense of isolation. Um, and it can be a little bit hard to adjust to. I've definitely felt that at times in Bangkok where I'm like, it's hot. I can't talk to anybody. Uh, you know, the pulse of the city is just, it's different. It's definitely a different rhythm to the States where like, okay, I'm just going to get in my car. And even if I'm sitting in LA traffic, I'm in my car. I can put on my tunes, listen to a podcast, whatever. Here we don't have our cars. So we're a little bit more exposed to the elements. And if you call a taxi, your taxi driver may have limited English skills, so you're kind of sitting there in silence. And it definitely takes a lot to adjust to it. I felt more lonely in my first few months in Thailand uh, than I do now. Um, Now I just connect with Thai people a little bit easier because I picked up some basic Thai words, and that's enough to make a basic connection. And I found more and more young people that have some basic English and that they want to practice it. Um, so that can be helpful as well. Yeah, Curious Stage, Kim, feel free to share that Oakland bloggers channel. Always interested to look at some other Bay Area channels. Jake says, totally, I have a long history with the apps. LOL, currently still on there. It just feels a bit draining at times. Yeah, 2015 golden era. But yeah, these are great, all great points, and really really funny. Most things in life are trade-offs. I missed driving during my years in Asia. And now I can't stand to drive a car. I haven't had one in nearly 30 years. Yeah, for me, I'll try to show some other stuff. For me, I don't like driving in cities. I love driving in rural areas. So that's something that if there's a few things I miss about America. One, I miss my friends, but two, I miss just like going out and driving in the middle of nowhere because you have this extraordinary sense of freedom in America when you are in the rural areas. California is like this too, where I've been spending time in California, of course, before I moved over here. And it's so gorgeous. It's drop dead gorgeous. And you're out in the middle of nowhere and you're like, how does this place exist? Like, and I just have so many stories from my time there that stuck out to me, looking at breathtaking views of the ocean, being the only person on a beach many times, going to different places, like especially coming back from Asia. If I'm back in California after a trip in Asia and my sleep schedule is messed up, I'm driving around in the middle of the night. And whereas if you're only driving in urban environments, you're only thinking about traffic. Oh man, it's hard to park. Like that's the beauty of driving in America, or driving in general for me, is driving out in the middle of nowhere where you just are surrounded by the countryside and the cows, and you see a full moon, or you see a beautiful mountain vista. You end up in some country gas station and people are like, you ain't from around here, are you? And so that's the kind of feeling that that I'm looking for when it comes to driving. But yeah, I do agree. It's trade-offs. It's certainly trade-offs, and that's something that I am looking forward to when I am back in the States, is being just kind of driving out in the middle of nowhere. Thomas says, have you thought about finding a wealthy Thai mother? Yeah. I mean, that's part of the appeal. I've heard some guys have found sugar mamas over here. I don't doubt I could find one if I really wanted to. I don't necessarily like the idea of focusing on that, just because I'm not in a rush to get married. um, it's it, it's not necessarily always what it's made out to be. I think cross culturally too, you need to be really conscious of Thai culture. I think Thai culture has so many layers to it. Even being Asian American, being raised by my grandmother from Japan, there's still elements of Thailand that I'm learning even after a year over here. And I imagine even if I lived here 20 years, I would still have a lot to learn. Um, there is a Thai woman that I'm interested in, but I don't I don't want to have an LDR. So if I have to go back to America, I think it's just kind of like hard on them, and I don't think it's a realistic expectation. Um, and like I said, I'm not in a rush, uh, but certainly for some guys, I think it's worth consideration of dating a Thai woman. But you also have to understand if you're talking about a woman from a wealthy Thai family, then there's probably going to be some expectations of tradition there. There's going to be some level of like, hey, we really want you to choose a Thai man. So yeah, DHM, I think that's a fair point. And it's not just that they don't want the foreigner, it's that there's a lot of expectations. There's a lot of expectations of com- combining families, of cultural understanding, of respect, of history, of um, traditions. And Western people don't necessarily fit very easily into that equation. I don't, Alex, I was once going to the airport to catch a flight in Korea. My cab's transition conked out and I switched taxis. Imagine if I was driving my car and that happened. Yeah, I don't know. I drive a Toyota back in America, and maybe I guess I've just been blessed to drive like more, I wouldn't say like brand new, but late model cars. Never had any car problems in America. And of course, in America, I also have AAA, which is a great service I recommend for Americans where with AAA, if I have any car issues, I can just call up AAA and they'll send somebody out to one, help me fix my car. If they can't fix it, they'll tow it. So it does cost extra, but I don't know that that kind of service would be as popular in Korea due to economies of scale. Thomas says, sometimes you can find what you're looking for. Because of her, I don't have to slave forever to buy an overpriced Australian property. I just invest my money. Yeah, I mean, to each their own, Thomas. I don't judge anybody, especially when it comes to love. People like, I look at it like if a person has found love, as long as it's consensual, I don't have judgment for it. With age appropriate consenting adults, I don't have judgment for it. There's so much harshness and darkness in the world that if people find love, then it's not my place to judge or to tell them this way or that. But for myself, I don't know that I could do that just because if I meet somebody and they happen to be wealthy, sure, like that's wonderful. But it's not necessarily a need to have for me. And long term, I'm not worried about my ability to build wealth there. But yeah, I mean, if that's something that you're interested in, I mean, the Filipina I met and dated in Cebu was more successful than me. Now, of course, in real terms, I was earning quite a bit more than her. But as far as relative position in career and like on the on the come up, like she was doing very well. She got promoted. She moved from a boarding house to a nice apartment, and I reached out to her a few times, and I miss hanging out with her. She was a lot of fun. Like she was just probably the most fun woman I've ever dated. Just like exuberant, high energy, very sweet, and yeah, I think there's a special connection that Western people can have with Filipinas because of that English, right? Like that's another reason that I'm not ready to settle down. Is like I feel like as a guy in dating in Asia broadly, I can date as an older man with no problems. There's not going to be that judgment. It's very, very common throughout Asia for an older man to date a younger woman. I have a Facebook friend who is an executive at one of the large Japanese companies. I'll kind of limit it to that, but I think he's in his 60s and he just had a baby. So he had been divorced and has some kids that are, you know, I'd say college age, but he got a divorce and remarried a woman that's probably in her probably 30. And so all this stuff about, oh, that's just Southeast Asia. No, it's all of Asia. I mean, you know, even my own parents, they had an almost 10-year age gap, and this was in America. So like, it's going to be a thing throughout history that older guys who are more well established are going to date younger women who are capable of, you know, I think, in my personal opinion, having the energy to help raise a family, because like the older I get, the better off I do. But like, I don't have the same level of energy I had at 20 years old, but I have maturity that I didn't have back then. So I can maintain relationships more effectively as an older man than I can as a younger man. I'm also better at figuring out what I like and don't like. Thomas says, she's hot and 10 years younger than me. There are some trade-offs, but if we break up, I'm no worse off. And yeah, Thomas, I mean, you know, if you're happy with her, like that's what I support. You know, if she happens to be wealthy, awesome. Like there's nothing wrong with that. Certainly most people that are being honest would prefer to have money and assets than to not have money and assets. And in the Philippines, because people are closer to their families, wealth building, that an element to that is that it's easier to build wealth. Now, of course, in absolute terms, you can do very well in Australia or in the United States, but like I spend a lot of money in America that I have to spend because I don't have family ties. So, you know, there's a lot of times where I'd be a lot wealthier if I came from a closer family. And I think a lot of Filipinas, because they are closer to their families, they have that fallback plan. They have people they can trust. They have older relatives that can give them insight into business or you know, goals or success or planning. And if they want to go on vacation, Philippines, your hometown is awesome for vacation for most people. Most Filipinos I met, they tell me about their hometown. I'm like, this place is awesome. This place is amazing. And this place is gorgeous. Like, you'd pay an arm and a leg to go back home to a place like this back in America. So yeah, that's something I'm a fan of. Tom, I'm married to a peanut and all she needed was looks and no expect. Why is it such a poor country? I visit and see so many people struggle, even the hard workers. I mean, one, I don't ever talk about, you know, the economic side. I will say there's a few things that are, I always look at what is out of people's control, because that's just what I look at. It's a little bit different than I think a lot of Western or East Asian people think about. But one of the things is inclement weather, right? So when I was leaving Manila 4 years ago, the Taal volcano was going off, and I was one of the last flights out of Manila because it ended up erupting. I had a buddy from the States he's married to a Filipina, and he was living nearby, and it shut down the airport. When I was leaving, I could tell it was getting smoky. The sky was getting smoky. So you're in a place, you know, that is suffering from inclement weather on a consistent basis. You also have earthquakes. My buddy in Cagayan de Oro in Mindanao was talking about flooding. He was like, well, in this part of Mindanao, we don't have typhoons, but we have these awful flash floods that affect the town. So there's certain parts of the planet that basically just have weather problems. It's the same, like people wonder, well, why is the internet down in the Philippines? Well, some of it is that it's just harder to maintain infrastructure when you've got 7,000 islands. You look at Hawaii, and people pay a huge amount of money to live in Hawaii, not just because of land being in high demand, but also just the cost of bringing things out there. In the Philippines, it's very expensive to bring anything out there. Anything that you want is going to be expensive if it's not produced in the Philippines. So I found that in the Philippines, like, there's a lot of natural obstacles just as far as being isolated, geographically isolated from, you know, it's also like manufacturing is not going to be easy when you've got, you know, sandy ground, like parts of America, for example, Florida. You don't see manufacturing much in Florida because the sand doesn't necessarily lend itself to a stable foundation. I mean, in Florida, it's gotten so bad that a lot of home insurance companies have just stepped away from Florida. They're like, look, we're not going to insure homes in Florida because of the natural disaster. So you have people leaving Florida because they can't insure a home there. Now, Florida is a wealthy state, probably one of the wealthier states in the United States, but they cannot avoid the hurricanes, right? They cannot avoid the sandy soil. And then I'd also say in the Philippines, you just got tons of sharp people. I mean, you got a lot of sharp and bright people in the medical field, and they've got too many sharp people. And so that will make and this is common throughout Asia, you've got tons of qualified people, which drives wages down. In America, the education is so bad in parts of America that as a medical professional, you can make more money living in the middle of nowhere in America because they have such a hard time attracting qualified people. So even though you're in America, even though you're in a place that's, so amazing and this and that, you may not be able to attract the right people. So they have to pay more. So there's all these factors outside of people's control that, create or stop certain opportunities from arising. I mean, you look at Portugal, I think they had like a 12% literacy rate in 1900. That would blow people's minds. A lot of people are like, why is Portugal affordable compared to other parts of the country or other parts of the continent? And part of that literacy is an example of that. So there's factors that happen that people can't control. It's unfortunate. Certainly don't like to see. I mean, Duterte, I think at one point is quoted as, mentioning that, but yeah, I mean, I don't hold, I don't hold individual people against that or that against individual people. I think the woman I dated in Cebu, her family, her sister moved to Canada and, was happy living in Canada, working in Canada. There's certainly a lot of opportunities for OFWs, people who are from the Philippines who want to work overseas. I grew up around several Filipinas and I think one half Filipina and also a full-on Filipina. So plenty will immigrate for different kinds of opportunities. Same with Hawaii. I mean, Hawaii, you're going to see, plenty of Hawaiians in Las Vegas, plenty of them in California because the opportunities are just stronger there. Internet is bad. Yeah, but I've been going for a while. I'm starting to lose my voice a bit, almost 2 hours. So feel free to toss in any last questions or thoughts. I appreciate everybody so much for joining the stream. But my voice is starting to go a bit, and I've got a meeting later tonight online. So I want to save my last bit of voice for that. And DH Kim, some of that is true in the United States. Some of that is true. Like, I compare people in the Bay Area and the opportunities they have because of the people they know versus people back where I'm from in Tennessee, and not business owners. Let's set aside business owners because Tennessee is a very business friendly state. And lots of people are successful business people there, but just like people working for somebody else. And the wages are low. I remember having conversations with my friends working for wages back in Tennessee and talking about the wages in California. And, in Bay Area, you can make $30 an hour or close to it washing dishes. There's nobody in Tennessee making that washing dishes. People are making probably $10 an hour. So I feel around the world, your alumni network is going to be a bigger factor in how much you earn, because I met plenty of idiots in California, just to be completely honest. I mean, not everybody was an idiot, but there was plenty of people who weren't that sharp, but they were in the right place at the right time. And so that's something that I think will apply to the whole world. I know a lot of people think everybody in America is a genius, but you look at the Pareto principle, 20% of the people produce all the value in a company. So even in tech companies, you've got some people that are very, very productive, and you've got other people who are not very productive. But headcount is headcount, and the companies are are doing the best they can to hire bright people that can help contribute ideas and work hard. But yeah, just take care of your health. Good night. Thanks so much. Yeah, I definitely need to take care of my health. But thanks so much, everyone, for joining. I appreciate everybody chiming in on the stream. And sorry for the mix up with having to create another stream. But looking forward to a nice weekend. I'm going to go out and shoot a video tomorrow. And yeah, I hope everybody has a great weekend and take care. And we'll see you next time.